Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Joe here from East Macau, Stan.
Hello and greetings.
And since one controversial review episode was not enough for us, we decided to review the second episode of this series. And there was a lot of sleep involved, but when we finally awoke from our slumber, we found that 5 minutes had passed, and oh gosh, there's another 15 minutes left. This episode, okay, the Peter plot doesn't even go anywhere. It's just they're just wasting our time. So I'm not even going to comment on it. Like, you have brilliant actors. You have, like, but anyways, there's an early revelation in this episode where it's revealed that Piao was indeed hired by the magistrate Quintus to spy on some of the local vessels. And the thing is, he had his debts forgiven for this. So that's an interesting plot point. Now, right before this, the Centurion was very, very nervous about meeting with Quintus and was terrified because he's aware the magistrate's a bloodthirsty psychopath. But Matthew doesn't care for his fear or the fact that he doesn't want to be involved in the death of two kind of innocent fishermen and sees this as below his pay grade. But had Matthew been right, this would have been the consequence. Piao and Andrew would be dead. The wife of Piao would have been violated and then sold into slavery. The house burnt down. And then the neighbors would have rebelled because how dare you treat our people this way, or violate a woman on the street right next to us. And they would have been within their rights to rebel. And the centurion in question would have been murdered. So ultimately, Matthew would not have paid for the consequences of his actions, but the centurion would. But this is where the centurion's just kind of going, this is going to lead to basically a blood feud. I don't want to be involved in it, and you're dragging me kicking and screaming into it when I don't even believe in this cause. So two guys are scamming on their taxes. Pfft, big whoop. We know where they live. We can get them anytime. How about we just wait till next tax day and we screw them over then? But instead, Matthew wants to screw them now. But they find out that actually Quintus had hired Peter and agreed to absolve him of his debts, his financial debts. Then Matthew asks, and what of his brother? And the magistrate pauses, ponders it, and just shrugs and says, yeah, him too. Apparently deciding on the spot, nah, whatever.
This isn't worth it.
And it's such a small amount to me, who cares? But then Matthew, against the wishes of his centurion bodyguard, decides, hey, I don't think Piao is a competent enough guy. You should basically carry a vendetta against him.
He goes spend his money at the
gambling parlor. We should control where he spends his money. And you have Quintus. I like you, is basically what the entire scene boils down to. With the centurion staring on in a little bit of horror and going, okay, wait, what? So, anyways, Matthew overall is a bankster, as we just found out. So there's going to be a great redemption arc that they're setting up. In this regard, the writing is pretty tight for Matthew. As for the centurion, there's actually a pretty good bonding scene between him and Mathieu, where he ends up catching Mathieu having gotten his nose punched in a little, righteously, and Matthew ends up explaining it happened at a temple, and that it's revealed he doesn't really speak to his dad after the centurion after he says, well, I can't neglect any of my responsibilities. And the centurion comments, oh, okay. And well, actually, Matthew points out, I learned that from my dad. And at which point the centurion goes, wow, it sounds like you had a great dad. Like, wow. And the fact that you're so dedicated to your work, yeah, and you're tough, like, even though you're injured. You're tough for wanting to do this while you're still injured, to an extent. You must have good Roman blood in you. It's meant as a very big compliment. Like, you're tough as a Roman. Which, actually, back then, the Romans were tough as nails. It's really big compliment. And you can see the centurion really does mean it. He's starting to like Matthew after Matthew nearly risked his life. And he's trying to be nice. And Matthew tells him he doesn't speak to his dad, at which point the Roman says, I really don't understand you and your people. How could you not speak to your dad? He's your dad. And you have Matthew insist, all people are like that. And the Roman, no, just you. You guys are weirdos. Also, in passing, in this episode, the centurion also ended up knocking out one drunk who was in a fight with a lesser Roman. And what that scene established was that the centurion is actually a pretty nice guy who looks out for his men. He can be a little rough and tough, but he's a soldier. So overall, the portrayal of the Romans are pretty good. The only problem is linguistics does not seem to be Angel Studios' strength. And Nicodemus is on the hunt, on the prowl, to find out how Mary got cured. Turns out it wasn't him. And the scene just stretches on and on and on and on for about 10 minutes, when, you know, you could condense it into 3 to 4 minutes. I'm not trying to be... Okay, I like scenes that stretch on forever. I love the Rome series. I even like the first season of Game of Thrones. They had scenes that stretch on for a while, and yet they were so good. Because there were things like good acting, good music, good... just everything. But here's the thing. The costumes are perfect. The actors are fine. But there's no music, which is a little boring. And most of all, the writing just keeps stretching the scene out, where it's just like, okay.
It is drier than the Sahara.
Yeah. But here's the thing. If you want to write another novel, write a bloody novel. Because TV is not a novel. It should capture our attention. Now, then we get to the last bit of the episode with the revelation of Jesus. Now, the actor nails the line. He says it very quietly with a small, confident smile, which I really like. When he's asked his name, he says, I am Jesus. Perfect. Except no music. And it's just said in passing. What? Okay, for one thing, this scene, there should have been something bombastic or something big happening. Like one of his sermons. And then you have someone who tries to confront him and goes, well, who are you? At which point, what does he say? I am Jesus. And you then cut to the music and the end credits.
And as much as there's a lot of problems with Hollywood, they at least understand a line like that would need to have a bigger impact.
Rather than just, like, okay, we basically see him at dinner, so what if we saw him at a grocery store pushing a cart and going, by the way, I'm Jesus? Like, you basically go, well, this scene is meaningless. Heck, I could cut this scene better with Pillars of the Earth music. Watch!
In case you couldn't tell.
I'm so sorry. I don't actually know your name.
I'm Jesus of Nazareth.
Another example that Hollywood uses in the Iron Man movie at the end.
Oh, I am Iron Man.
And then you have all of the reporters rush him, and then the scene cuts.
Yeah.
That is a bombastic example of a scene that they should have done with that.
Heck. Now, I'm actually going to say, I'm going to refer to another kind of religious show. Pillars of the Earth. You had, well, remember one episode, Tom Builder, in a shaky, quiet voice. And so it begins. Remember when they start the first, like they just start the planning of how the size of the cathedral. And Tom just says, and so it begins. Music kicks in, cut to the end credits, and you're just filled with awe and hope and whatnot. The thing here is, there's a way to make a history drama interesting. See Rome, Pillars of the Earth, and whatnot. There's a way to bring in some religious themes if that's where you're going with it. But, like, don't bore the audience to tears. Prince of Egypt. Fantastic animated film. The Ten Commandments, I mean. Frick, that was dumb of me right there. The Ten Commandments, Joseph, King of Dreams. These are great religious movies. And there was a time religious movies did not mean bad or boring. It's sometime, I think in the 90s or something, when most religious movies just became boring and the acting became subpar. I don't know why. It just seems to have happened. And it lost all flair and magic and art.
This is a situation where the director, there was someone in the system that did not understand how to properly
Set the mood.
Exactly. I mean, Lion King. When Simba runs away, and you have Scar to the hyenas, kill him.
Music kicks in.
Music kicks in.
And you're left with panic and fear.
Yeah. You had no music for a minute, just Scar, bored look, stone-faced, kill him.
Yeah. But here's the main problem. Was there any music for this episode?
Oh.
And that's okay. In the last episode, the music was used perfectly at the end with the scene with Mary. Sure, I don't like her being, but the music was perfect at the end of that episode. Maybe use that music for him introducing himself as Jesus. Don't you have the most important figure in possibly the history of the world, and you just have him go, by the way, bro, I'm Jesus. No,
the end of the previous episode when Jesus showed up, it was treated as a big thing.
Yeah.
It's like...
But here, you're left bored.
It's...
Okay, I'm actually going to say this, and people are probably not going to like this. I'm getting the feeling they're trying to subvert here. The term subvert expectations is not a good term because it typically means we're aiming to make garbage and we're deliberately trying to, insult the intelligence and integrity of our audience. And we're trying to insult the original work. And I'm going to go there because the previous episode subverted things with St. Mary of Magdalene. This time, it's subverting expectations in that it seems that somebody in production is allergic to music. I mean, what's wrong with it? We've only used it as a form of artistic expression since forever as a species. And, in Celtic Catholicism, it's believed that music was created by God himself. And you've got some Mormons who, from what I understand it from a friend who's a Mormon, it's believed that the Holy Spirit inspires art and itself, so that art and music is the very language of God. So with these ideas in mind, what does that say about this? This is not divinely inspired, because divinely inspired would imply it's actually good. But come on. Stop subverting expectations. Stop boring us to tears, because, my gosh, the scenes in this episode. This episode could have been cut in half, maybe even to 20 minutes. Honestly, who in production is not editing the writing? They need a darn good editor. We could write better than this. We have written better than this. And yes, I'm plugging our stuff, because if this studio is just going to use this story to plug their own stuff, follow us at Substack. We've been doing some serial novels out there. We've got one that I think people will like called Bear and Cub. It's about a father-son story of basically Anglo-Saxon blood feuding and whatnot. It's pretty cool. It's great. We've got a few others planned. A few of them rather more nice and loving and lovey-dovey and all that jazz. We do have some planned. Oh my gosh. Dan's got a great Scottish mythological story in mind. It's really good.
Yeah.
And just reading a bit of what he's written is even your sword and sorcery idea is really good.
Yeah.
But this just has me going. We could do better. We have done better. Hell, check out our call episode from our
Oh,
Brothers
yeah.
Haborian. Way better writing, way more mythological, and way more
Entertaining.
yeah.
I mean, there were several times. I've watched it before bed
Ooh.
because it's that good. Generally, I get a little embarrassed listening to myself on.
I don't listen to myself ever at all. So I get too embarrassed by our own videos and my voice. That's just me.
It's not that we're embarrassed of the video. It's more like
I can't stand to listen to my own voice. If only... Yeah. Anyways. But that said, I'm going to leave a link to our video in the comment section. Because why not? And if you enjoyed this video, and even if you didn't, do remember to smash that like and that subscribe button.